Hello, hello, hello. I'm making another putty video with a new putty and it's gorgeous. And I want to express my gratitude towards Donald Trump. He's doing an amazing job weighing things off, doing the right things at the right time, helping as much as he can, being very extremely fair to everyone. So I am in 100% support of Donald Trump. I want him to get re-elected. We should be infinitely grateful to have Donald Trump as president. That's a that's an that's monumental, okay, for me to experience this, to live in this country and have this amazing president. That's an amazing experience. And I see with sadness, the fads, the peer pressure in the world. People are letting themselves being peer pressured, being subdued by society. Peer pressure can go very far. Peer pressure goes so far that they did psychological tests. They did controlled tests with humans that were non-invasive. And they tested people. They'll test one person at the time. And they put that person into what they call, like a focus group test, but done at the university. The person that was tested, they volunteered to be tested. In psychology, we all had to do test person hours. So that was a prerequisite to get into the 40 diploma. I did all of those. I was interested in the projects of all the other people. So, and I tested other people as well. So, and it was kind of fun. It was interesting for statistics. So, one person at the time gets into a room with like 19 other people. And the person is told that all of these people are test people and this is a focus group type of test. They never tell the test person the absolute truth about what this test situation is about and how they test the person. Okay, it's a trickery thing, That's part of the test, that's part of the study. And the person agrees to that also, So the test person doesn't know what's going on. Test person goes into this room, like a classroom, and there are boards, like to demonstrate something on with one of those markers. And the test person thinks the other people are also test persons, but the other people are all actors. Okay, they play test people. And so what happens then is they were shown different graphs on that board. And they tested every single person, but, openly, so that the other people could also see what the other person was voting in terms of the graphs. So they went through the row of people and they asked every single person, how long is this graph? is this graph longer than this graph? And it was very obvious that the one graph was longer than the other. But the other actor test people, they voted that it in reverse. They voted that the shorter graph was longer than the longer graph. So just a little bit longer, but it was obvious that it was reversed. It was very obvious to the eye to see that it's not overly obvious, but still obvious enough to see that the one graph is longer than the other, but not overly where it becomes apparent to the actual test person that she's just being tricked here or something. So she still thinks this is the test people are voting on which graph is longer than the other. And they all voted false, of course. They all voted that the longer graph was actually shorter and the shorter graph was actually longer. And when the vote came to the actual test person, and I don't know how many they tested, maybe 100. So 100 individual of those tests, was the actors. So in absolute, like in the vast majority of those tests that they have done, that one single test person voted the way the other people voted. Let that sink in for a moment. Let that sink in. To me, this didn't come as a surprise. I've already seen this. I've already observed this in the world. So that wasn't news. So when we're on the internet and when we observe, really, really, really closely observe how people behave, we can clearly see this pattern. People vote the way that they think that the social, the common consensus is voting. When they see a majority of people ranting and raging, going to the street, then that's what they feel like they need to do too. They need to follow. They want to follow the fad. Jiddu Krishnamurti and Dr. David Bohm have talked about this for like 50 years. About this phenomenon of followership. Why the human species is genetically dispositioned towards following what the majority of other humans around them are doing. Following the flock. I think it's time for us to sit down with Patti and meditate on this. And this is not about shaming or blaming or, putting people down. This is an observation. This is a fact. It's sad. It causes problems, this phenomenon. It caused problems throughout the centuries. Followership causes problems. Whatever they follow, whether it's a religion or another ideology or some kind of leader, cult, any kind of common consensus, whatever the group decides which path they walk on, the follower will follow blindly without questioning it. The sharpshooter says, I followed my orders. People grow up with a violent religion that tells them to kill the so-called infidel, in quotation marks, and they will do it. They don't question it. They don't question whether that is ethical or unethical. They just follow. Okay. During the Middle Ages, they burned women. They tortured people in the name of their religion because they called them heathens or witches. They demonized people that were slightly different. It's an insanity. It's a hysterical mass madness, and people follow it. And they would keep on following until they butchered each other totally into the ground. That phenomenon kept the population in a stable balance. If we want to look at it from another angle and see what the plus side of that was. But I don't see the plus side in suffering at all. There are people that think suffering somehow has its place. I don't agree. I'm against suffering. I'm against violence. I'm against hate cults and hate groups. We've seen enough suffering now in the world. It's enough. Innocent living beings exploited and hurt and butchered. Animals and humans. I cry over this every day, particularly at night when I go to sleep. I have to literally rock myself to sleep. Often crying. I'm glad I can cry. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that it flows. A lot of people can't even cry. That's the worst. That's the worst kind of suffering. Locked in pain, and you don't even have any kind of vent, any kind of path of expressing it. That's really the worst. So meditation and crying is a real present from the infinite cosmos. Okay, you guys take care. Bye bye.